The crystal chandelier spilled golden light across the long dining table. Its white linen stretched like a stage set for a play I'd seen too many times before. Glasses of red wine glittered, forks clinked against porcelain plates, and the room buzzed with carefully rehearsed cheer. But inside me there was no Christmas warmth, only ice. My name is Clara Prescott, 38 years old, seated at the far end of my family's table as if I were a stranger. On the walls, portraits of the Prescott ancestors stared down with the same cold detachment as the people around me. My mother, Evelyn, rose from her chair. She wore crimson velvet, a string of pearls catching the light like frozen drops of power. With a practiced smile, she raised her glass. Evelyn, mother, tonight we raise our glasses to Damien, the future of the Prescott legacy, to the son who will carry our name into a new era. Applause broke out. Laughter filled the room. My younger brother Damien leaned back in his chair, grinning like a crowned prince. Then Evelyn's gaze shifted to me, her voice sharp as glass. Evelyn, and Clara, my dear, you are the past. We thank you for what you were, but you no longer matter. A ripple of awkward laughter followed. Some cousins smirked, others looked away. Damien lifted his glass toward me, his smirk deepening. Damien, don't take it too hard, sis. Not everyone is born to make history. I placed my fork down carefully, my hand trembling not from fear but from restraint. For years I had swallowed their words, played the invisible daughter. But tonight, something in me snapped. I lifted my head and met their eyes, cold and steady. In that moment, I knew this Christmas would not end the way they expected. The room buzzed with chatter, forks scraping across china, but every word felt like it was aimed at me. Damien leaned forward, swirling his wine with that smug grin carved into his face. Damien, you see, Clara, teaching at some university might impress bookworms, but it won't build empires. This family needs vision, it needs power, and that, sister, has never been you. Laughter rippled down the table, louder this time, as if everyone had been waiting for the punchline. One of my aunts dabbed her lips with a napkin, then added her poison. Aunt Margaret, your father always dreamed of a son who would carry on his empire. He would be so proud of Damien. Her words hung in the air, heavy as lead. My father's memory, the one person who had ever defended me, twisted into another weapon against me. Evelyn clinked her glass, silencing the whispers. Her eyes cut across the table like a blade. Evelyn, Clara, don't interrupt when serious matters are being discussed. You wouldn't understand the weight of leadership. That's not your place anymore. My chest tightened, but I didn't flinch. I stared at the flickering candles, their flames bending with the draft, reminding me of myself, fragile in appearance, yet still burning. They thought I would shrink back into silence, play the part of the forgotten daughter. They thought humiliation was enough to break me. But humiliation has a way of sharpening resolve, and mine had never burned brighter. I didn't argue back, not yet. Their laughter echoed in my ears, but my mind drifted back to nights when I had first begun to doubt the story I'd been told about this family. I remembered the evening I found the small oak box among my father's things. Inside, a USB drive and a letter written in his steady hand. When truth is buried, Clara, dig deeper. Your blood will show the way. Those words had burned into me. My father, the man they praised for building the Prescott empire, had hidden something he never trusted the others to know. For months after his death, I lived in silence but moved like a shadow. I slipped into Damien's study under the cover of night, pulling a single hair from his hairbrush. I collected a glass that Evelyn left behind after a charity gala. Quiet, invisible, the way they had always wanted me to be. But invisibility can be a weapon. In my lab at the university, where they said my work didn't matter, I ran the samples. I ordered private tests under false names, each result sealed and locked away until the moment was right. And as the data came back, piece by piece, I realized something chilling. The Prescott legacy was not as pure as Evelyn boasted. The bloodline they worshipped was cracked. I closed my father's letter that night, tucking it back into the oak box, and whispered to myself, "When Christmas comes, so will the truth." The laughter around the table swelled, brittle and hollow, bouncing off the crystal glasses and golden silverware. Damien basked in it like a performer soaking up applause. Evelyn's smile, polished and sharp, glimmered in the candlelight. I sat quietly, my fingers brushing against the small envelope hidden in my jacket pocket. The paper was thin, but its weight was enough to crack the entire foundation of this house. Damien raised his glass again, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Damien, I suppose it's only natural. Some of us were born to lead, others to teach." He smirked at me. "Nothing wrong with that, Clara, but you're not the future. I am." A few cousins chuckled. Someone muttered, "She should be grateful she's even here." I inhaled slowly, the sound of my own heartbeat pounding louder than their chatter. Then, with deliberate calm, I reached into my jacket and placed the envelope on the center of the table. The room fell silent. Forks froze midair. Even the fire in the hearth seemed to crackle softer. "Evelyn, mother," narrowing her eyes, "what childish stunt is this now, Clara?" I didn't answer. Instead, I slid the envelope closer, letting it rest among the wine glasses and flickering candles. The Prescott crest stamped in red wax caught the light, daring anyone to open it. Damien scoffed, leaning back. "Damien, let me guess, another lecture, or are you finally resigning from this family once and for all?" I met his gaze. For the first time that night, my voice didn't tremble. "Clara, no, Damien, tonight I'm not resigning. Tonight I'm redefining." A wave of unease rippled across the table. Evelyn's smile faltered, her pearl necklace catching against her throat as if it too had tightened. They didn't know it yet, but Christmas dinner had just turned into an execution ground, and I was no longer the one on trial. The envelope sat between the candlesticks like a live grenade, its red wax seal unbroken. All eyes flicked between me and it, as if the table itself was holding its breath. I slid the envelope open, pulling out the crisp white papers. My father's handwriting wasn't on these. Science was, cold, undeniable. My voice was steady, carrying over the crackle of the fireplace. "Clara, I've listened to the speeches, I've swallowed the insults, but while you crowned Damien as the future of the Prescotts, I chose something different. I chose proof." I placed the first page flat on the table. The Prescott crest on the header caught the candlelight. "Clara, I ran a DNA test, independent, verified, and here's what it says." Evelyn's face drained of color. Damien's smirk froze halfway, lips twisted between confidence and fear. I tapped the line highlighted in bold. "Clara, Damien Prescott, no biological relation to Evelyn Prescott. None, zero." Gasps erupted around the table. A wine glass slipped from someone's hand, shattering across the marble floor. The air cracked with disbelief. Damien's chair screeched back as he lurched to his feet. "Damien, that's a lie, you forged this." Clara cutting him off, voice rising. "It's science, Damien, not opinion. You don't carry this family's blood. You never did." Evelyn reached for the papers with trembling fingers, scanning them desperately as if her sheer will could change the words. "Evelyn, this is nonsense. You had no right." "Clara, I had every right, because while you stood here and called me the past, I was the only one with the courage to look at the truth." The room erupted into whispers, cousins murmuring, aunts and uncles exchanging horrified looks. And for the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. For the first time, they were the ones shrinking into the shadows. The whispers swelled like a storm breaking. A cousin muttered, "So he's not even one of us." Another hissed, "All these years worshipping a fraud." Damien's fists slammed the table, rattling the silverware. His face flushed red, eyes wild. "Damien, shut up, all of you. I am a Prescott. This is a trick." He snatched the papers, waving them above his head as if fury could burn the ink off the page. "Damien, Clara doctored this. She's jealous. She's always been jealous. But his voice cracked, his hands shook, and that more than the documents themselves exposed him. I didn't flinch. I didn't even raise my voice. Clara, you've lived your whole life under a crown that was never yours, and the truth terrifies you, doesn't it? Evelyn shot up from her chair, pearls clattering against her collarbone, her face pale as wax. Evelyn desperate, trembling. Enough, Damien, sit down. Clara, you don't understand what you're doing. Clara, I understand perfectly. You called me irrelevant, dismissed me as the past, but this, I tapped the papers, this is your future unraveling in front of everyone. The family erupted. Chairs scraped, hands pointed, voices overlapped. Uncle Thomas, so all those speeches about bloodline lies. Cousin Lydia, you let us bow to Damien when he wasn't even. Damien's roar cut through them all. He lunged across the table, finger stabbing the air at me. Damien, if I go down, I'm dragging you with me. The chandelier above seemed to shiver, the fire popped in the hearth, and for one suspended moment I saw it, the cracks in their empire, the panic in their eyes. This wasn't just a dinner anymore. It was war. The din around the table grew frantic, voices clashing like swords, accusations flying through the air. But then Evelyn's palm struck the table, sharp as a gavel. The room froze. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, her pearl necklace trembling against her throat. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my mother's eyes. Evelyn, voice cracking. Stop, all of you, you want the truth. She turned to Damien, her voice trembling between love and desperation. He's right, Damien isn't my blood. I raised him as my son, but I didn't bring him into this world. Gasps shot around the table. Damien's face twisted, rage collapsing into confusion. Damien, Mother, what are you saying? Evelyn's lips quivered. She gripped the back of her chair as if it were the only thing holding her upright. Evelyn, years ago after your father died, there was a fire. A fire no one was meant to survive, but one child you was left at my doorstep. And I let the world believe you were mine. Her voice broke, tears streaking her powdered cheeks. The room erupted again, aunts crying out, cousins whispering, so he was never one of us. But Evelyn wasn't finished. Her eyes darted to me, heavy, pleading. Evelyn to Clara. And you, Clara, you were never supposed to find out, because the fire didn't just take records, it took my real child. The words struck like a blade. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Around me the family recoiled in shock, some covering their mouths, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Clara, cold, steady. So all these years, while you were praising Damien and calling me the past, you were mourning a child you lost, and burying the truth in ashes. Evelyn crumpled into her chair, sobs racking her body, her once impenetrable mask shattered. Damien stumbled back, eyes wild, his entire identity collapsing in a single breath. And for the first time, the matriarch of the Prescotts looked small, fragile, broken. The dining room no longer resembled a holiday gathering. It was a courtroom without order, a battlefield without rules. Uncle Thomas shoved back his chair, his voice sharp as broken glass. Uncle Thomas, you lied to us for decades, Evelyn. You let us build Damien up while you hid the truth. Cousin Lydia's eyes burned as she jabbed a finger across the table. Cousin Lydia, we signed contracts, pledged loyalty, invested fortunes, all for him. Do you know what this does to our name? The air thickened with fury, betrayal, and panic. Damien staggered, gripping the back of his chair, his voice trembling. Damien, I am a Prescott. Blood or not, I earned this seat. Clara quietly cutting in. You earned nothing, Damien. You inherited a lie. The words sliced through the room like a blade. The murmurs turned into roars, cousins shouting over one another. One slammed a fist into the table, another burst into tears. Then I reached into my bag. Not for another glass of wine, not for comfort, but for the oak box my father left me. The moment the carved wood touched the table, the noise dulled into silence. I placed the USB drive beside the shattered remains of a wine glass. Clara, the DNA test was only the beginning. My father, he knew, he left me this. Files, records, proof. Gasps rippled through the room. Evelyn's face went white, her lips forming a soundless no. Clara, steady. This empire wasn't built on strength. It was built on lies. Lies that started long before Damien ever sat at this table. I slid the drive across the linen. No one touched it, but everyone leaned closer, as if the little piece of plastic pulsed with electricity. Clara, the fire you speak of, Mother, it wasn't an accident. It was the cleanup, the cover-up, and my father knew it. The chandelier above seemed to tremble, candle flames bowing as if the house itself was recoiling from the words. And just like that, the Prescotts, this family of steel and legacy, began to crack apart, one fracture at a time. The USB sat untouched, but the room shook with its weight. The fire hissed in the hearth, shadows stretching across the marble floor like witnesses waiting for judgment. I opened the oak box one last time. Beneath the files and data drives, wrapped in brittle parchment, was a letter in my father's handwriting. His words, written years ago, yet meant for this very night. I laid it gently on the table and began to read, my voice calm, steady. Clara, reading. To my true heir, Clara, you were never the past. You are the one who carries the truth and the strength to expose it. If you are reading this, it means Evelyn chose lies over blood. And Damien, he was never ours. Protect the name only if it deserves to live. If not, let it burn. The words landed like cannon fire. Gasps erupted, a chair clattered to the floor. Cousins clutched at each other, others shouted over one another in panic. Damien roared, lunging for the letter, but I pulled it back before his fingers could touch it. Clara, ice cold. Even father knew, and he left it to me, not you, not her, me. Damien froze, his rage collapsing into something smaller, weaker. His mouth moved, but no sound came. Evelyn's sobs tore through the silence, her body hunched in defeat. Evelyn whispering, "Clara, please, don't destroy us." I looked at her, at Damien, at every face around that glittering table, faces that had laughed at me, dismissed me, erased me. And then I folded the letter with care, slid it back into the box, and stood. Clara, you destroyed yourselves the moment you chose lies over truth. Tonight, the Prescott empire dies by its own hands. The chandelier flickered, a glass toppled, someone cried out. I turned, walked away from the table, and for the first time in years, their eyes followed me not with scorn, but with fear. And as the heavy doors closed behind me, the sound of their empire collapsing filled the night like a requiem. The heavy oak doors slammed shut behind me, muffling the chaos inside. Voices still rose and fell, shouts, sobs, accusations, but they were no longer mine to carry. The night air was sharp, the kind that stings your lungs yet clears your head. Snow drifted down in slow, silent sheets, catching in my hair, softening the world that just minutes ago had been knives and fire. I walked down the steps of the Prescott estate, each footstep crunching against the frost, steady and unhurried. Behind me, that grand house, that monument to legacy, stood trembling, lights flickering like a dying star. For years, they had called me irrelevant, forgotten, past, but the past doesn't vanish. It waits, it gathers strength, and when the time is right, it returns to remind the present who really holds the truth. I stopped at the gate, turning once to look back. Through the frosted glass, I could still see shadows moving, frantic, broken, desperate. The Prescotts were tearing each other apart now, not with love or loyalty, but with greed and fear. And I felt lighter than I had in decades. I tightened my coat, whispered to myself, Clara, justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits. And sometimes it walks away, leaving silence to do the rest. With that, I stepped into the snowy night. The sound of their empire crumbling faded behind me, replaced by the hush of falling snow. And for the first time in my life, I was free.